Welcome to another edition of the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast. With you as always, Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network, NFL.com. Sam McDowell from the Kansas City Star. I'm surprised he's not traveling between KC and St. Joe as we speak, doing this on like his phone as he is up at every single practice for your Kansas City Chiefs. Although the ramp up, really throwing the pads on, that doesn't get going until next week, but they're up there. They're practicing, so what better time for us to attack? What are the five biggest questions that still have to be answered? What are we going to learn here from training camp? What do the Chiefs have to learn in training camp? We're talking about it right here, right now on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast.
You are listening to the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Chiefs on planet Earth, breaking down the Chiefs like no one else can. Red, Gold, and Bold is hosted by Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro. Jeff Chadiha is a senior columnist and on-air personality for the NFL Network and NFL.com. Sam McDowell is a columnist for the Kansas City Star. Soren Petro is the afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. The Red, Gold, and Bold podcast is proudly brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. Now, here are the hosts of the Best Chiefs podcast, Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro.
Thank you very much, Curtis, as we are off and running here on the Red, Gold, and Bold here on a Friday. We stream 10 a.m. on Fridays. You can be a part of the conversation. Be a part of the chat room, if you like, by joining us Fridays at 10 a.m. Tuesday nights, it is at 9:30 p.m., so put that on your schedule. And, gentlemen, we've got training camp going, but there are still questions to be answered. What are the five biggest questions that still have to be answered? We all agreed. I think number one better be the same for everybody. Although I am interested in the phrasing. You two are writers by trade, so yours should be much more poetic than whatever I slap down as just some talk show hump. So I am interested in the phrasing. I think we may have some similar, like, we'll get to some of them. It's like, oh, yeah, I'm kind of like that, but I think it's more about this. So I think that's going to be interesting. But, Sam, how about it? Do you want to do the honors on this improbable question number one?
Sure. The way I phrase it is Josh Simmons the real answer at left tackle? I think he'll be the Chiefs' answer. So is he the real answer at left tackle? Because that is not only the biggest question looming over 2025, but if you answer that question now definitively, then suddenly it's not going to be number one on all of our lists in 2026, 27, and 28 as well. So there's nothing that has bigger ramifications than the answer to that question, whether or not Josh Simmons is the real answer at left tackle.
Okay. All right. I think we're all going to be of that ilk. Jeff, how did you put it together?
I was more expansive with my question. I said, is the offensive line fixed? Because I feel like Kingsley Suamataia does not deserve a pass in this. Like, he's part of this conversation as well. And I know everybody's talking about what Josh Simmons has become, what he's been, how he looks. But I just feel like we don't know if Kingsley Suamataia can play left guard. And they just watched one of the best left guards in football, move over to the Chicago Bears via trade. And so, obviously they spent a lot of money on Trey Smith. They spent a lot of money on Creed Humphreys. Jawan Taylor has had issues at the start of training camp with injuries. And I just feel like this left side of the offensive line is not just about Josh Simmons. It's about Kingsley Suamataia as well.
Yeah. And how about Jeff not going for the easy way to finish his homework assignment? Because that could have been two questions, Jeff.
I know. But I have other questions. I wanted to roll them all into one.
So you wanted to get them all into one. Okay.
Yeah.
I like it. I have who is the left tackle and are they good enough? Right. We found out who the left tackle was last year's Kingsley Suamataia. what we didn't realize, or what they didn't realize, was that he sucks, right? Like, and I think that's the thing that to me is maybe a little bit more nuance here to this than just like, okay, is it Josh Simmons? Is Josh Simmons healthy? If he's not, is it Jalen? Then it's Jalen Moore. But it's all the whoever it is, are they good enough? Right? I mean, I think there's a kind of an acceptance. There's I might say as much as an excitement over Josh Simmons, because there is, I think, already too much of a, well, as long as he's healthy, it's solved. And Sam, you've done a good job the last couple of times we've chatted and be on the radio show of like, the question shifts from is he healthy enough to play to now can he play? And I think that's been the big part. That's the underscore here, is I do think it is multifaceted. In some ways, it's two questions. Is he healthy? Well, he's healthy enough to practice. We'll see if he's healthy enough to excel and be a guy. And by the way, if everyone was right, just because he was going to be number one in the mock drafts, if he didn't get hurt, that means he's going to be the best guy. We've seen some, I can't even remember, what was that hump from Baylor that went number 2 overall to the Rams about 15 years ago? I mean, there have been, Tony Manrich, obviously the biggest one. I mean, there have been guys who've been the consensus top dog at tackle.
Becton. I mean, he was a good guard. He wasn't a good tackle.
Yeah. I mean, so just because he's healthy doesn't mean that he was ever going to be good enough. Now we're going to find out if he's good enough. And I like the way you've been putting that. And I think that is, without a doubt, the biggest question, right? You got to protect Patrick Mahomes. The guy who's going to, the most important part about that's the left tackle. So you find the pecking order, but are they still good enough? I think that's the part that people, there's a feeling, I think, amongst most Chiefs fans that, if Josh Simmons is healthy, then it's solved. And it's not solved yet.
We'd be asking ourselves this question if there were no injuries related to Josh Simmons. Just, is he good enough? Is he healthy enough? It appears so. Is he good enough? We have no idea. He's never appeared in a padded practice with the Chiefs. It's why we're doing this exercise now, because the pads are going to come on now. And now the real evaluation for whether or not Josh Simmons can be your left tackle begins. And they didn't scrutinize themselves enough with this same evaluation last year. And like we mentioned on Tuesday's podcast, they have a reason to scrutinize themselves more closely because they have a better backup plan than they had at this time a year ago. So they better give themselves a real evaluation with Josh Simmons this time around.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's like this has been baked in. The notion that new means improved has been baked into this conversation about Josh Simmons since he arrived. And I feel like people, both on the national level and locally, tend to overlook there was a reason why he was available when the Chiefs were drafting. And it'd be different if he had like a situation like Mike Green had with the Ravens where he had some off the field issues that had come up. But Sam's right. Not only has he never been in a fully padded practice with the Chiefs, he's never played in the NFL before. and so I try to caution people about this, that it's not like just because you say somebody is great in college and this, is the greatest player available in this class, doesn't mean that translates. And just look at Shedeur Sanders as proof of that. And a lot of people thought he was great, but in the day, he was a 5th round pick. I don't wish any ill will on Josh Simmons. I hope he has a great career. I hope he overcomes this injury and he's as good as advertised. But I do fear that there has been a lot of talk about the Chiefs having fixed their problems. We don't even know if they've created a new problem.
Yeah.
Do you guys remember this conversation last year with Kingsley Sumatia, where I had gone back and looked at teams that historically started left tackles and what they did, and there were only 2 rookies in NFL history that had started at least half their team's regular season games at left tackle and then won the Super Bowl. And it was Matt Light started 12 games for the Patriots in 2001, and John Michaels started 9 for Green Bay in 1996. So no rookie left tackle has started at least 13 games, and that team has won the Super Bowl in the same season. That has not been part of the conversation only because we've talked about his health. Now it becomes the relevant part of the conversation again, though, is that this hasn't been any team's formula for winning a Super Bowl in the past, is to start a rookie the entire year at left tackle and then go win a Super Bowl.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great point. I do remember you giving that stat, and I think it's one that'll stop some people right now that listen to this podcast in their tracks. Like, wait a minute, what? All right, because it's not just like is it, when we say are they good enough, it's not that they'll never be good enough, but are they good enough now? Right? Yeah, I mean, I think that's the point, is that there's growing pains, right?
100%. That's exactly what that stat shows, Soren.
Also there is a little bit, I would say. It also shows that, generally speaking, the really elite left tackles go so high, they're usually joining a team that kind of sucks.
No.
Yeah.
So there's an element of that as well. So, but yeah, I mean, just because Josh Simmons maybe has his struggles this year doesn't mean he won't grow into the spot. So, all right, Sam, where do you go at number 2?
I have. Can the Chiefs find a way to cut down on explosive passes at number 2? And the reason that's relevant to me is because there's going to be so much talk about downfield shots in this training camp. And I thought of this today as Steve Spagnuolo, or Wednesday as Steve Spagnuolo was talking. I thought, you know what? As somebody asked him about defending these downfield passes, I was like, wait a minute. The defense needs these drills just as much as the offense needs these drills, because the offense can't complete downfield passes anymore over the last couple of years, the way that's withered away. But the defense gave up 52 downfield passes last year, 52 downfield explosive passes. And, it's 20-plus yard gains total, and they tackled well after the catch. So it was not an issue of, hey, guys are catching and running the ball. It was purely an issue of you're getting beat behind your coverage. They gave up 7 of those to the Raiders last year. 7 explosive passes to the Las Vegas Raiders, and all of them I think were like 28 yards or more, by the way. And there was no games where they allowed 0. Every team got at least 1 on them, and there was only 2 games where they allowed 1. And so, 15 other teams got multiple against them. Like, this is a serious issue, and then you just lost Justin Reed in the equation. So I think that's a real question for this defense this year.
Yeah, no, I would agree, and I think, there's a lot of elements that go into that, right? Pressure better, cover better,
yes,
different things like that. But I do agree that they have to cut down on the explosive plays, and I think there was a little bit of that was even part of the conversation. Or did you point blank ask about it? Is that why? There's a lot
I
of
asked about it. Yeah.
Okay, so
yeah.
Good. Okay, I was like, because it was answering your question. Because I just hear the.
It was a terrible answer, but it was a just perfectly worded question.
I'm glad I played just the answer on the radio show. Jeff, what's number 2 for you?
I'm on the same side of the football, but I'm in the front of the defense with this one. Can Chris Jones dominate? And I know that, Sam has pointed out his pressure numbers and those numbers, his get off rate, all these things, his ability to get to the quarterback, create pressure is still high. The sack numbers were not obviously where he would want to be with 5. But I'm curious, what does this year look like? To me, it's like he's starting to reach that age where, okay, the decline is going to be a lot more precipitous the way he plays. I know he's taking great care of his body over the years, and that he was at the offseason conditioning program. But just as with Travis Kelce, there is an expiration date on greatness. And I do wonder if he is a tick or 2 below where he was this past season. What does this pass rush look like? What does this defense look like? What does the explosive play situation look like? Because, Karlaftis got paid and Nick Bolton got paid. This is still the engine. And if the engine is jacked up or a little bit jacked up, then there's going to be some problems.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And let's keep in mind, Chris Jones he's at an age where he should not fall off a cliff, but you're starting to get to where you're watching him, right? Mm-hmm. Like, is he going to back up? If anybody can push Father Time back a little bit, it's a guy who's in great shape each year, but he is kind of on watch, right? Like, were all the pressures that didn't equal sacks, was it just kind of bad luck, or was it because he could still kind of get by him, but he wasn't quite getting there in time? I don't know. I think that's a fair one. I have, can Kingsley Suamataia handle left guard, and are the Chiefs honest about what he really is?
Yeah, so that's why you double dipped.
That's why, that's why I was putting together.
Top 2 too. I mean, he went bang bang on that.
Bang bang. Because first of all, it is top 2 in my opinion, because they have to get the offense back. Right, they have to get it back to being elite. I think a lot of things. I think if the offense gets back to being, let's say, a top 3 offense, I think it solves a lot of the other questions, or it helps solve a lot of the other questions we'll have. Why didn't they get after the quarterback more? Because every game was a one-score game, and the other team had every club in its bag that they could use on offense. If you get a team down 13, they got to throw. You get one more one-dimensional. You can really put your ears back and go after the quarterback. And so I think the pass rush gets better if the offense is better. I think I think every part of it gets better if they can protect Patrick Mahomes. And I think they score. They play from in front. I think that's where they're better. They obviously can handle a game that's tight. They did it in remarkable fashion. In fact, absolutely unrepeatable fashion. There's no way that they can win the one-score games at the way they just won every single one of them last year. And the most important part is going to be to protect Mahomes. But I think it's also important. Like, they either don't know what to look for, or they completely kidded themselves, or as great as Andy Reid's training camps are, and they are, like he's got a proven track record, but either they kidded themselves or they didn't test the offensive line, because somehow they went into the season thinking Kingsley Suamataia could handle left tackle, and they had no chance. And I'm going to tell you, I heard Andy Reid say in this offseason that, and he got experience at the end of the year at guard. So did Hunter Norzad. He got experience at center. And Hunter Norzad graded way better in that game, according to PFF's grades. And yet, it's Kingsley Suamataia that's being given this job. So in the talking point that Andy Reid used to kind of give some love to the fact of why he's better. Well, he got a game experience. Well, so did another guy, and that guy played better. Yet it's still Kingsley Suamataia that opens with the one. So there's a lot of reasons. He had a great athletic score. I know all the information that's out there with him. There's a lot of reasons to believe that he will be much better at guard. Doesn't have to play, and I'm quite optimistic. And I think he will be better. The question is he going to be good enough? I think the question is he actually the best guy for the job? Or for whatever reason, they just, fallen in love with the guy. That's scary.
Yeah. I said this to a friend the other day who asked me about this. And I said, I've always known when a great coach has gotten to a certain level and maybe losing some of their touches is when they begin to feel like everything they touch turns to gold.
Yeah.
And I've seen it with Mike Shanahan. I've seen it with Mike Holmgren. I've seen it with John Gruden, where they begin to feel like, if I take this guy, he's going to be great because I took him. He's on my team. He's going to be coached by my players. He's going to be in my system. And there's some of that with Kingsley Suamataia going on here.
Could be.
Yeah,
maybe he's going to be great, but
yeah. But the way they handled it the first time suggests that that's how they saw it. Well, we've got our guy, and he's going to be great. And they went and told their people like Louis Riddick to broadcast it to the world. And I hope that they learned a lesson from it. But I also do think that, and granted, injuries and personnel moves, some of these things did play a role in this, but I'm starting to wonder, is elite really the ceiling for the Chiefs offense? Because when I look at elite offenses throughout history, a lot of talent is involved in that. It's not just having a great quarterback, it's having a lot of great receivers and a great running back, a great offensive line. And you start looking around and saying, okay, who's really going to be great in this around Patrick Mahomes? And it's a short list. Right
the last three championships from the New England Patriots, they were not an elite offense, right? They just found ways to win. So I want to be clear. You're not necessarily saying that they can't win a championship. You're just saying,
yeah, exactly.
I think your point's valid. Like just picking 32 and 31 every year and, having to pay the quarterback and all that kind of prohibit you from ever getting back there. I think it's a fair question. Yeah. But I love your point. I call it believe in your own BS. Like when you start to just buy your own BS, like stuff that you tell people just to get them off your back, you start to think is reality. I'm with you. Instead of looking for the truth, you think you decide what the truth is. I 100% agree that is something that Andy Reid and people close to him that he trusts have to check him and Brett Veach and anyone that's had this kind of success. They're going to check them on making that kind of mistake. I wholeheartedly agree with that. Let's take a quick break. We'll hear from our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Locally owned and making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Let Gann educate you about the most cost-effective way to solve your parking lot problems. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews. Every project comes with a written warning. Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer and helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Find Gann online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. Northland Injury Law, Kansas City's Google 5-star rated personal injury lawyers, serving KC for more than 40 years, voted Kansas City's #1 accident lawyers, helping people with serious injuries from car accidents, work accidents, falls, and other personal injuries. Northland Injury Law doesn't get paid unless they get money for their client. Don't wait, get compensated now. If you have a case, text HURT to 22222. That's HURT to 22222 or call 816-400-HURT. That's 816-400-4878. The choice of a lawyer is an important one and should not be based solely upon advertisements. All right, let's get to number 3 on the list. Sam, where do you go for number 3?
Is this running back group good enough and diverse enough? I mean, we've talked about this running back group on past podcasts, and you guys know I'm not optimistic about this group. I think the Chiefs are putting a lot of faith into Isaiah Pacheco just returning to his pre-injury form. And it's not like Isaiah Pacheco was an elite back, even with his pre-injury form. He's never rushed for 1,000 yards in his career. And he's good. I mean, he's not, upper echelon of the running backs, like difference-making running backs. Everything breaks down. I can still go make a play type of player. And you're still like counting on him to even be at his best before the injury. We talked to him this week, and I thought he looked in better shape than I've seen him look. Like bigger. I mean, like he looks more muscular and bigger than what I've seen Isaiah Pacheco. And he wasn't a guy that was lacking for any of that before. But that alone isn't going to tell you that he's just going to be his old self. And if he's not, then what for the Chiefs? Because this is what I mean by the diverse enough. I still don't know who's going to play third down for the Chiefs. And Samaje Perine last year, I've mentioned multiple times, he led running backs in yards per catch last year. Once you set a certain minimum on it, and 17 first down catches last year. I mean, that's once a game where he's moving the chains for you through the passing game. And I don't know who that guy is on the roster now. So I'm eager to see over camp, can Brashard Smith step up earlier than anticipated? Or are they going to count on like Elijah Mitchell to fill that role, a guy who hasn't been a receiver his entire career, or, Kareem Hunt, who doesn't offer explosion? I mean, he offers, I think, sure hands, but not explosion in the passing game. So what does this running back look like once they hit Brazil?
Yeah. I agree with your smash period. You got to what I think the answer is going to be. The answer is going to be Kareem Hunt.
I don't disagree. I guess I would say I don't think it's a great. I don't think it's a great. I was just going to say I don't think it's a great sign if that's what it is.
Yeah, I apologize for interrupting you, but I think it may not, like you said, diversive enough. Yeah. I think he's going to be the guy. The question is he going to be good enough for them?
You talking about the full-time guy or the third down guy?
No, I think he's going to be the third down guy and the short yardage guy.
Okay.
And then I think he's first man up. First of all, they love that he doesn't fumble. Right? That's one of the things that's going for him. He was, in Cleveland, he was the third down back. Now he's not what he was in Cleveland. I get that. But, I think there's part of Andy Reid thinks, well, I'll scheme him open. And some of those Samaje Perine catches, like he was kind of wide open, like the big play against Buffalo, and, they got him out there. And can Kareem Hunt do that? You hope. And I do wonder what Kareem Hunt will be with a training camp under his belt, which he didn't have. Might make him worse. Might make him slower. Might beat him to hell. Or maybe it gets him in better football shape. I don't know.
Well, to Sam's point, and I know Elijah Mitchell, he signed a lot earlier and they targeted him a lot earlier, but J.K. Dobbins was out there forever. And J.K. Dobbins did a hell of a lot more last year than Elijah Mitchell did, and has a skill set that Sam's talking about that could be very useful to this team that you saw within your own division when he was playing for the Chargers. Why he was never, and maybe it was a money thing, maybe he wanted more than they were willing to pay, but he would have been a perfect fit as part of this backfield versus what they have. He might have been the starter compared to what they have.
Yeah.
I think the Chiefs, for the Dobbins point's a good one just because he signed after the draft. But I think when I look at this room as a whole in totality, that the Chiefs went into this year's free agency thinking it's a loaded draft. This is not the time to spend what few dollars you have on running backs. I don't disagree with that strategy. But then suddenly the draft just doesn't, the board just doesn't hit you in the right spot to say a running back is very near the top of the board, and therefore he's the pick in this specific round. It just didn't fall the way I think they anticipated. And suddenly you are what you are here going into free agency is pretty similar to what you are now.
I'm looking here at some of the prices. I want to bring this up here.
Dobbins was 5.5, and I think Mitchell was 2.
I'm looking here at the guys that changed teams. So Najee Harris, 5.25. Javonte Williams. I thought Javonte Williams was a guy I would like to have seen Andy Reid get a hold of. A few years ago, he looked dynamic for the Denver Broncos, and I don't know he may be physically done, and that's why they.
Yeah, he's done. He was the worst graded running back by a lot of metrics last year,
and not a great pass catcher either.
Right? Rico Dowdell, 2.75. J.K. Dobbins, 2.75. Elijah Mitchell, 2.5. Nick Chubb, 2.5. Samaje Perine, mentioned, 1.8. Kenneth Gainwell, 1.8. Ty Johnson, 2.5. Raheem Mostert, 1.6. So there are a number of names where it seems like at those prices you could have brought in a couple. It's $15 million per. I mean, maybe part of it is they set out for Jalen Moore and it ended up being way more than they thought it was going to be. At $15 million per, they paid a big price tag for a guy with 12 starts. So that might have been part of it. All right, Jeff, where do you go with your next one?
I go with what is Rashee Rice going to be this season? And I asked that partly because of the suspension, obviously. We don't know how many games he's going to miss, but also because he's coming back from major knee injury. And it's just as with Josh Simmons, it's really, you have to be very cautious about asking too much or placing too high of an expectation on a player after something like that. I think the way he started last year, there's recency bias with that for a lot of people because he started great and he looked phenomenal. But again, it's hard to miss games. It's hard to come back, get into a flow. And I just think so much of what we've talked about, what Sam mentioned with his second question is on Rashee Rice to really, if this offense is going to take off and be prolific and explosive again, he's going to have to be a big part of that. And if you don't have a great run game, which I do believe in today's game, you have to have that to also be explosive as an offense. You look at, we've mentioned before, the Bills and the Ravens and all these other teams that have that, the Eagles, the Lions. Without that, you got to have a hell of a lot that you're putting on your receivers to make it happen. And Travis Kelce is not that guy anymore. Xavier Worthy and Hollywood Brown, we're still waiting to see what they become. But Rashee Rice is the main character in this story that I think has to really elevate his game. And I'm not sold that it's going to happen right away.
Sam, I know you got a lot of thoughts on Rice.
Yeah, I think he's key to what they do. And I don't think that this offense can go from ranking, 15th and 15th, or was 16th and 16th in back-to-back seasons, and then be a top 5 offense unless Rashee Rice is a Pro Bowl player or even potentially an All-Pro player. I think he has that kind of talent. I think he's a great fit for what the Chiefs do. I think that the only way you have a downfield passing game is if Rashee Rice is on your team, forcing the defense to play, intermediate routes and underneath routes. That's what's actually going to open up. As much talk as there's, they drafted Xavier Worthy, he's going to open everything up downfield. It's no. When you've got Rashee Rice turning 4-yard catches into 20-yard gains, they're going to have to put more guys over the middle of the field and underneath routes. That's what's actually going to open up your downfield passing game. So I totally agree. And, as a foreshadow here, I mean, Rice was on my list. I mean, I'll go with something else to have a little bit of diversity here, but Rice absolutely is one of the 5 keys to what the Chiefs want to do.
Yeah, I think I like the way Jeff put it. What is Rashee Rice going to be this year? Because I think he is great for the offense. I think he's a great fit, but we were talking last podcast about what he's going to ask for. We were somewhere in the 25 to 30 million range, right? As long as he stays out of trouble, that he's going to get a big payday. But he doesn't really work the sidelines. I mean, there is a little bit of, he's not a trick, but it's a lot of slants, it's bubble screens. Can he become the full wide receiver? Can he work the boundary? Can he beat somebody with a move? Can he get him to take the wrong step? And then, he's not as fast as Xavier Worthy. He's not as fast as Royals. But, neither was Jerry Rice. Jerry Rice ran a 4.65. But Jerry Rice could get behind you because he could set you up with the moves. And has Rashee Rice done that work to become the full all-around receiver? I like the way Jeff put it. Like, what is he going to be, right? We know he's hugely important, and he can be productive. Can he be the all-around wideout where you're like, well, we do, even with his baggage, want to give him $30 million?
Yeah, and I think we also have to keep in mind that his injury, even though it's a knee injury, I think people always associate that with non-contact. This was an injury associated with contact, and he's a guy who in his career has sought contact, and that's been his strength. I don't anticipate that there will be hesitancy, but would any of us blame Rashee Rice if early on in his first game or two you saw some maybe hesitancy to put his head down the way that he has, given that there was a contact involved in a pretty serious knee injury? I remember Juan Thornhill talking about that a lot, as I can't trust my knee yet, and doctors keep saying it's 100%. I can't trust that it's 100% yet. I mean, that trust usually, this is a mental game too. It can take some guys time too. And Soren, just one more point on Rashee Rice, that you mentioned the bubble screen. That was a play that the Chiefs just totally eliminated from their playbook last year once Rashee Rice got hurt. They had nobody else who could run that, and that is an extension of the running game. And that was just gone from the Chiefs last year. They couldn't run outside the tackles because Kareem Hunt was their lead back. They couldn't pass outside the tackles on those bubble screens because Rashee Rice was gone. And so that's an absolute important play that needs to be back in the Chiefs playbook this year.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. All right, I'm going to go with, can the Chiefs use Travis Kelce the way he warrants being used? Right? And that's an all-around question. That's Andy Reid for how he schemes the offense. It's a Travis Kelce question. Can Travis Kelce, as he slimmed down and he can be a little bit more fleet of foot and he warrants the kind of targets? We know injuries forced him back to throwing the ball there. I think we all agree. Like, if the Chiefs are winning the Super Bowl, let's say the Chiefs are playing in the Super Bowl, we'll start there. What kind of year did Travis Kelce have? Probably third leading receiver on the team, maybe. We all think that evolution needs to happen, but can they do it, right? Or do they need to, they just need to move the kind of nutty chick to another state and get her completely away so that they can now, live a balanced life and move forward, right? You got the buddy who just can't, breaking up, back together, breaking up, back together. It's like, dude, it's a mess every time. Like, what are you doing? And this has not been a toxic relationship. I'm just saying, I'm talking about a situation where people can't do what's best for themselves until it's just gone from them. And I do wonder, will the Chiefs, because Andy Reid, I think, spent 5-6 weeks trying to convince everybody that it was just around the corner that Travis Kelce was going to have his numbers. That's what he kept saying at the press conference. I'm not worried about his numbers. They'll be there in the end. But they weren't. And so I think part of it is, have they, and the answering of this question began in the offseason with Jalen Royals, with re-signing Hollywood Brown. Like, have they put the pieces into where they can now get away from having to make Travis Kelce the focal point? I think there's a lot of dynamics that go into them getting it right with Travis Kelce this year.
Yeah, and to me, I know it was in a different team situation with this guy, but Travis Kelce needs to be what Rob Gronkowski was to Tom Brady in Tampa, where you've got Mike Evans and you've got Chris Godwin, and Gronk is the guy who makes a play here, makes a play there. He's your security blanket, and you still can rely on him in some key moments, but you can't eat up with him in that position, day in and day out, or week in and week out. And I know that is, I think sometimes people don't understand how tough a transition that is to make for someone who has been as prolific, future Hall of Famer like Travis Kelce. I give him credit for coming back and coming in with this mindset of being in great shape, but really it's great mental shape. to understand that, yeah, the way that first 2-3 weeks started for you, that's going to be a lot more stretches like that over the course of the season for this offense to be what it needs to be. And I think he can make it, but I don't think it's going to be an easy process some weeks.
And if it's like he's coming to, if reality is that he can't do it like he used to, can he stay positive?
Yeah.
Or does he start lying to himself and throwing the helmet around and becoming a distraction? It's not easy when your career starts to wrap up.
Well, and Sam knows this because so much of his success in his later years has been about improvisation. And so you can't be the guy who just wants to run over here because you think you can get open or go there because you're screwing up somebody else's route when you do that. Like, you got to be the guy who does what you're supposed to do the way the play is called.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting. Remember, we're always brought to you by our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Locally owned and making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Let Gann educate you about the most cost-effective way to solve your parking lot problems. With free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty, Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer and helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Find Gann online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. Northland Injury Law, Kansas City's Google 5-star rated personal injury lawyers, serving KC for more than 40 years, voted Kansas City's #1 accident lawyers, helping people with serious injuries from car accidents, work accidents, falls, and other personal injuries. Northland Injury Law doesn't get paid unless they get money for their client. Don't wait, get compensated now. If you have a case, text HURT to 22222. That's HURT to 22222 or call 816-400-HURT. That's 816-400-4878. The choice of a lawyer is an important one and should not be based solely upon advertisements. All right, number 4 on your list, Sam. Where are you going with number 4 on your list?
Well, I'll preface this by saying that there was a little bit of crossover with some of your guys' points, but luckily I think we all came prepared for this situation. And so I'll tweak mine a little bit to say, can OmarNorman-Lott handle a bigger workload, or will he get exposed by being on the field a lot more? And because in some fashion, you need to, I think, have a question on your list that basically says, like, will their defensive line be more productive? You could look at George Karlaftis for that. Jeff looked at Chris Jones for that. And for me, it's like, as much as you talk about the defensive line needed to do more, you lost 6.5 sacks with Tershawn Wharton last year. Like, 6.5 sacks from the interior is a good year for an interior pass rusher. And like, where's that coming from? And in the first week of camp, again, no pads, all that stuff. But the intel you do get is what teams think of players. And OmarNorman-Lott is running a lot with the first team. Like, it truly seems like he's going to be playing more than he did in college at Tennessee. And I think there's some politics involved with that at Tennessee and some 5-star recruits who needed to get on the field if you want to have them back for their next year. I get that. But still, nevertheless, you could have a player playing as a rookie more than he did in his last year of college. And how does he handle that? Because we know he had a really high pass rush win rate. But, and Stren, you brought this up, what happens when he's on the field? Do other teams say, we know that guy can pass rush, we're going to run the ball? And can he handle that if that becomes team's answer to it?
Yeah, I think you're right on the defensive line where everybody's like, there are multiple questions, like getting after the passer is going to be a big one. And I think OmarNorman-Lott is the guy out of all of them. Now, he may end up being the best player in this draft. We'll see. But I think he's the guy out of all of them that you look at and say, well, if there's one spot where they reached, this is it. Because they went into it saying, we got to get a defensive tackle. Like, maybe they were going to go defensive tackle in round 1, but when they went Josh Simmons, it's like, we have to take whatever the best defensive tackle is that's available there in the second round. Because it's the one thing they didn't really address in free agency as it went along. So I think, zeroing in on him is a perfect point. Jeff, where do you go for number 4?
I went to the secondary. I know Sam mentioned explosive plays. Again, I'm going to be a little more expansive here and say, is the secondary fixed? Because I probably wouldn't be asking this question if Christian Fulton didn't start training camp on the PUP list. And now you've got to look at that secondary and say, all right, Justin Reed's gone. Christian Fulton has doing Christian Fulton type things. You're looking at Trent McDuffie's playing on the outside for some reason, and Shamari Connor's doing a lot of work in the slot from what I've seen, and getting some love from Spagnuolo about it. But Shamari Connor in the slot last year was not a great thing to see. And in fact, led to some of those explosive plays that Sam mentioned.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so you got a second-year safety in Jaden Hicks. You got a guy I'm not a big fan of in Brian Cook at the other safety spot. And now I'm saying, okay, what are we doing here? Like, how is this all supposed to come together? So there's some red flags being raised real quickly about that defensive backfield that I thought wouldn't be getting raised until we actually saw them play in real games.
I'll nominate Noel Williams as a possible solution as well. I mean, third round is a round where you can get a quality corner. I think it's worth mentioning. I mean, they are not overrated in their ability to identify and develop corners. They're not overrated. Let me phrase that again. They've done a very good job of identifying and developing corners, but they might be a little bit overrated. L'Jarius Sneed was a 4th-round pick, and Trent McDuffie's very good. He was also the 20th pick in the 21st pick in the draft. You're supposed to be pretty good. The third corner taken in his class, behind 2 guys that were great. I mean, as well. So that you're supposed to be good. But kind of they can just grab guys anywhere. Jalen Watson has been an excellent selection in the 7th round. But was it Kamal Haddon and the Nick Jones, and there's some other swing and misses. The idea that just anybody they grab is going to play, because Shamari Connor's been kind of up and down. It is. I do think that, they need to get it right this time around, because they have made a couple of investments in guys fairly high. Noel Williams in the 3rd, and Hicks isn't that high, but he's not that low for a safety either. Like, I do like how you put it. I'll go with number 4 for me is, do the Chiefs have the right – this is my way of working in the defensive line and how I'm going to put it. The Chiefs have the right players on the defensive line, and will they keep the right players? I think there's a couple of things at work here. One, from what we've seen from Felix Anudike-Uzomah, there's been no reason for him to be on this roster the last 2 years, other than you think there is more ceiling there, right? 2 years is long enough. Wait to see it needs to appear now. And
so you think you're saying like put him on the roster bubble is what you're saying?
Yeah. I mean, will they cut him? They cut Breeland Speaks.
Eyes out.
They cut Breeland Speaks after 2 years, right? Which is, I think, was one of the
2 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
1 year, and then he got hurt, and they may have done an injury settlement in that second year. But I don't know if he got hurt in camp or what, but they walked away quick on him. He was not there for a third. And if I'm wrong, he got cut in camp on his third. But I think that's one of the more impressive. I mentioned John Dorsey cutting the fullback that he took in his first draft in the 6th round, and I remember talking to him, and he's like, I was like, why would you take a fullback? He's like, when I got better, I cut him. Like,
I don't think Speaks made it to year 2.
I think he got hurt, and then they did like an injury settlement. I think they realized, okay, that's it. You're out. XFL legend.
He was waived during. You're right. You're right. In August of 2019, his second year, he got put on IR.
Okay.
So he wasn't even around for the Super Bowl then, huh? Wow.
No. So, but I think that, like, will they do that again with Felix Anudike-Uzomah if it needs to be? Now, maybe they got the right guy. Maybe he's spent the whole offseason doing, I don't know, Shido Khan training, and his hand fighting is better, and his get off's better, or he's 20 pounds heavier. I don't know what it is. But they've also got now, we recognize that the best edge rushers go in the early picks, and they don't get to pick early. George Karlaftis is a 1st-round pick, and they've got him signed. And then you've got Chris Jones, who was a high 2nd-round pick. But Ashton Gelati in the 3rd, OmarNorman-Lott's in the 2nd. Like, they've either got to find a way to trade up. And if they don't have it right with some of these guys, they've got to find a way to trade up into the 20s. Like, you're going to have to sacrifice picks to go solve this problem. Because kind of quietly, like we mentioned, they've taken 3 left tackles in the first 3 rounds in the last 3 years. That problem needs to be solved. One of those guys has to solve that problem, because there's other spots you're not drafting. Well, quietly, there's a lot of draft picks on that defensive line. And so they have to produce. Ashton Gelati can't be meh, and OmarNorman-Lott meh. Felix Anudike-Uzomah, like, well, remember he had the broken hand when he first got here. Like,
Yeah.
Mike
Dana.
Mike Dana was actually the guy nobody thought anything of, and then he actually looked pretty good, but he didn't look as good last year. Charles Omenihu, I mean, they made the choice to come back with him. So, I think they need to have it right with all their personnel decisions that they made, and they need to make the right personnel decisions on who to cut as well. Like, there should be no room for the Josh Kandos and those guys. And I know he's not on the team, but like they've carried guys that had no hope of playing on that defensive line. That's got to stop in my book. All right, number 5 for you, Sam.
Yeah, I think we focus a lot on maybe the problems with this team last year when you go through this exercise. And so I'm going to ask a question for whether or not they can repeat something, which is, can the run defense be great again? Because last year, when you look at maybe their last 7 or 8 years, like last year's the anomaly in this situation when they were really good as a run defense, 9th in DVOA, 7th in yards per carry allowed. I think, this is partly a Nick Bolton health question. It was a couple of years ago that he was injured. The run defense was much worse. Their overall defense wasn't that significantly different, but the run defense was worse. I think he's got the highest stuff percentage of any linebacker when on running plays when he's in. But Mike Pennell's a year older. I think his arrival mid-season a couple of years ago did make the run defense better, but Mike Pennell is, let's see, I guess going into this, I probably should have known his age ahead of time. He's 34 years old. No one talks about that because he's not an all-pro, but that's your primary run stopper right there. And so I mentioned the relationship with this question and OmarNorman-Lott being on the field if teams run the ball more. So it's a league that shifted towards running the ball more last year, and so can the Chiefs continue to stop it the way they did a year ago?
And they don't have, as people have reminded me here of late, Mike Dana. I don't know how you're gonna.
You mean Derek Nottie?
Or Derek Nottie.
He's already forgotten his name. He's gone.
I don't know how you could possibly.
He put that name out of his mind on March, whatever it was.
They don't have a really round guy to roll backwards, with little effect. I do like your point about that because teams are running. It's a copycat league, and they watch the Eagles run the ball, the Lions run the ball. A lot of the teams that are having success are running the ball. Baltimore runs the ball. Buffalo runs.
What do you think the teams in the division are going to do? The Broncos picked up a 2nd-round running back. The Raiders
a 1st-round running back,
and so did the Raiders.
Yeah.
What is this division going to do? They're going to try and run the ball against the Chiefs.
I think that's a great point. All right, Jeff, number 5 for you.
You know what? I thought somebody would take the running game question, and Sam took it pretty early. So I got my 5th question is actually going back to the receivers, and it's can Xavier Worthy and Hollywood Brown be better, or will they be better? I think that's a better way to pose it. They can, but will they be better? Because so much, I think, there was so much hype around Hollywood Brown going into last season, and we all know how
from
it
who?
turned out.
Name one person.
Not me. I tell you, it wasn't me. And then also there was a lot of hype around Xavier Worthy after the Super Bowl because of the way he played in the second half of that game. And so for me, I think there are possibilities for these guys. I think they can do some good things, but I do think there are some concerns about, obviously the size is a big thing for both those guys, but will they live up to the potential of the hype that has been put around them? Because again, with Rashee Rice getting suspended and Travis Kelce taking a step back in this offense, those two guys are going to have to make a lot of plays. And I heard Mahomes talk about Hollywood Brown, I think it was the other day, and said, well, he did some good stuff and made some plays when he came back, and you saw the way he impacted it. He didn't have any impact. He did a couple nice things, but he's got to stay healthy. Hollywood Brown does, and Xavier Worthy's got to grow. If that happens, this offense can really take some steps forward.
Yeah. I was thinking about that aspect earlier this week, and let's say Rashee Rice misses 4 games. I think that's maybe the average of the predictions out there, 2 to 6. But let's say he misses 4 games, and like what is a success for those 2 other guys? If Rashee Rice is playing 13 of the 17, and so they're numbers 2 and 3 in the offense for those, just among the wideouts, not including Kelce in that equation. And I think I came up with about 1,400 yards. I need at least 1,400 yards from those 2 guys in order for this offense to get back to where we've been talking about all off season. There's some pressure for them to get back to being that top 5, top 7 offense. I think you're going to have good numbers from those 2 guys. Like, to Jeff's point and his rationale for putting this on his list, you can't have those 2 guys combined for 900 yards and be a top 5 offense this year.
I think that's fair. I think it's fair. To your point about Xavier Worthy, I quickly ran this. How many? I just was like, okay, well, where is 638 yards receiving he had last year? Granted, in 17 games, right? So that's one more game than a lot of guys got on this. How do you think that ranks amongst rookies? Like, most yards receiving for
last year or
no
overall?
in the history of the NFL, or at least since 1967.
Oh,
for how many yards Xavier Worthy had?
Xavier Worthy had 638. How many guys do you think had more than that in their rookie year?
In the history of the NFL?
Yes. Since 1967, not going all the way back. That's how far back StatHead goes.
I mean, last year 15, there were at least because last year there were like 5, right?
I was going to say, Brian Thomas had 1,200 last year.
Mm-hmm.
Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase.
Neighbors had more. I mean, I'm going to 15 is all you guess?
I said 15 to 20. The way you asked the question.
I'm going to guess like 60.
176.
Okay.
I thought the number was going to be like 40, 50. I'm like, I'll bet we find that that's a better rookie year than you think. It's not.
No.
It's not. And I'll point out now, if glass is half full, you're going to say, well, now with the other guys around, he's not going to be the focal point of the defense, and so he's going to have a lot more opportunities. Okay, we'll see. But I think this backs up to Jeff's point. Like, he was fine. Like, he did. He had some big plays. He had some explosive moments. It was great. But overall, when you're the guy, he didn't exactly dominate, right? I thought it would be better, and so that kind of puts into context. Like, he was fine. That's what he was. He was fine.
Yeah.
So he does need to take a big step forward.
How's that? Did you cut that up while you were sitting there?
No.
How'd you get that number?
There's a search engine.
StatHead got a little number next to it that does the counting for you.
Yeah.
I wonder how many of those, because like when I said 60, I'm guessing those. I guess I'd be surprised if
these are wideouts only.
I'd be surprised in the first 20 years if there were like that many, right?
That's what I was thinking. I was thinking like,
well, what years here? I can change
like
it.
1990 to get to like the 1,000-yard receiver.
I can change it like that. How many years do you want?
Yeah, let's do like 90 and on, 95 and on, something like that.
Okay.
Once I wonder how much it even changes though.
Again, it's going back from 67, so 95 to 2024, right?
Yeah,
that's what we're looking for.
Yeah,
the number becomes
almost 30 years.
The number becomes 105.
Okay,
I'm surprised there's that many early on, I guess. What else stands out though when you look at last year though, because I've compared him just to last year. And there's only one receiver taken after him who had more yards than he did in last year's draft. It's the guy that I consistently bang the drum that they should take, which was Ladd McConkey. He's
you and me both.
He's the only one who was taken. He's taken obviously just 6 spots. Worthy was 28 with the trade up. I think like McConkey was 34.
Yeah.
But he's the only guy taken after Xavier Worthy that got more yards than and so it's Thomas, Neighbors, McConkey. There's a couple other guys in there that were taken early too. Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah,
and There's somebody else that got taken.
Harrison Jr. at 4, Malik Neighbors at 6, Roma Dunze.
Dunze had more yards than Worthy did too. Yeah,
went 9. Brian Thomas went 23. That was another one of my dreams. Xavier Worthy, there at 28. Ricky Pearsall did not have more. He went at 31. 32 was Xavier Leggett. He didn't. Keon Coleman, 33, didn't, but he wasn't that far behind. And then Lab McConkey, 11, 49, and 7. Lab McConkey went 34th. I mean, yeah, that one's a frustrating one. For sure, because a lot of us for sure. But I know St. John was big on him as well. He was
just a good route runner who seemed to get open a lot.
Yeah, and faster than you think. When he clocked like 4.4, right, or 4.39. Yeah. I mean that was the thing. Like it wasn't like he was. But your age thing. Look at the age. You've talked about the age.
Is he older?
No, Worthy was just 20. Worthy was just 21.
That's what I'm saying. He's young, and that's where
McConkey turns 24 in November.
Yeah, okay. The age thing is a big one, and he ran a 4.39. McConkey, so it's not like he was slow. So,
but Worthy just turned 22, so there's about a 18-month difference there.
There's time for him to grow. There's no doubt. We'll see.
Yeah.
But I think Jeff's question is a good one. All right, my final one. Can the Chiefs coaches get back in front of the curve schematically? Right? Like I do think, just kind of like you said, Jeff, the way I phrase it, believe in your
offensive.
Yes, offensive. Kind of believe in your own BS. Look, I don't like Matt Nagy's the problem. Right, all bad plays Matt Nagy called, all good plays Andy Reid called. Like I think that's foolishness, and I don't really care who calls what and who does what job, but they're the guys again, and they now have, we've talked about on the offensive line. They've got a first-round pick at left tackle. They've got a second-round pick at left guard. They got the highest-paid center, the highest-paid right guard. They got a $28 million cap hit on their right tackle. They got a first-round pick in Xavier Worthy. They got a decent chunk of change in Hollywood Brown. They got a second-round pick in Rashee Rice. They got the second or third highest-paid tight end in Travis Kelce. Another one they just gave $6 million a year to not walk away in Noah Gray. The only thing they don't have really are the running backs, which, like, we're either going to, at the end of this year, if they're 16th again, we're either going to say, well, Patrick Mahomes has slid. Either Patrick Mahomes has slid, and it's time to slide him down all the lists. The running back position is way more important than the Chiefs, and most of us realize. Or they screwed up their offensive line picks, or they've screwed up some personnel somewhere, or schematically they're not ahead of the game anymore.
One other possibility, especially with this team, injuries.
Sure,
is another possibility.
Sure, yeah, that's fair. But I mean,
Soren, I think your point on Matt Nagy is one that we probably even should devote more time to, because I know that there's been a lot of comparisons to when Eric Bieniemy was here. This team was a top 5 offense, and Matt Nagy's 2 years as the OC. It's not. One, I think I would say this is Andy Reid's offense. Now, those guys have their jobs for a reason. They're not sitting in the corner doing nothing as offensive coordinators. But the left tackle position has been a problem, and the whole offensive line has been a problem. And the other thing is, Travis Kelce is no longer in his prime anymore. And the three of us talked a lot about last year that Travis Kelce in 23 was not as good as what people were saying he was. And that in 24, you could expect another dip. And we're saying the same thing this year. What is this offense going to look like when your all-time great tight end, the number one weapon for this quarterback, for over half a decade, doesn't look like he normally does? Then what happens? And I think that the Chiefs were prepared with Rashee Rice to a certain extent, and then Rashee Rice goes down and you don't have a backup answer, which is why I'm setting up your question here, Soren, is you do have that guy back now, and you are prepared because now you're certain that Travis Kelce's not what he once was. And now you've put all these investments into your offensive line, which sets up your question perfectly, Soren, as you've got all the excuses you had are out the window now.
Yeah.
And now it is time to get back to the offense you think you can be.
Yeah, for sure. Any honorable mention you want to throw on your way out the door, Sam?
I had the Chris Jones one on there that I had the Kingsley Sumadia one that you guys talked about. I guess the last one I would have is how quickly can Jalen Royals get up to speed? Just because these last 2 years they've had rookie wide receivers, and by the end of the year they've both been good. It's taken a minute, and so I just wonder. I don't think they need him to progress as quickly as they relied on those other guys, but I'm still curious to see whether or not he can be a legitimate weapon for him by mid-year.
Got any honorable mention, Jeff? You wanna?
I mentioned that the run game question was on my list. I phrased it as, can the run game be reliable? Asked about the explosive passing game and also about Travis Kelce, what his role is going to be.
Yeah, I like the corner. The one I would throw out there is like somebody's got to be a third corner, and like it's not a good start when Christian Fulton, his $10 million is sitting on the sideline, because now you've got a question at safety, and you have that question at safety because you didn't pay a guy who could have answered that, Justin Reed, and you did it presumably so you could sign Christian Fulton, and he has an injury history, as somebody on this podcast has pointed out a number of times. Oh yeah, that was you, Jeff. And now he already starts.
It's not a history. It's a history. It's an injury present right now.
Yeah.
And Noel Williams, whether it's him, this is the second highest corner they've taken under Brett Veach, right?
I guess that's right.
Yeah,
I guess that's right.
So he needs to be able to play. They need to be able to answer that for sure. So, listen, you can support the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast by supporting our great sponsors, Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Kansas City's best, proudly serving the metro area, and nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, locally owned and making parking lot problems disappear in KC since 1994. You can find them online at GannAsphalt.com. One contractor, all things parking lot, Gann Asphalt and Concrete, and our friends at Northland Injury Law. If you have a case, text HURT to 22222 or call 816-400-HURT. Kansas City's Google 5-star rated personal injury lawyers, voted number one in Kansas City when it comes to accident lawyers. It is Northland Injury Law. So for Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network, Sam McDowell from the Kansas City Star, I'm Soren Petro saying thank you very much for joining us.